Hey everybody, welcome to another Saturday live stream with Samson. It is of the mailbag variety, of course. And today, a special guest joining me to talk to everybody. A lot of people like our podcast together. We have been dubbed the Frasier duo. What are their names? Go
I don't
you.
know their names, but I do know to be hurt by that.
Yeah, like nerdy uppity basketball boys, but apparently there's a
Correct.
small subsect of the population that likes nerdy uppity basketball boys. Behind Louis is his child, who is joining us live on the internet, playing around in the playroom, and we are excited to bring basketball talk to you today. We have a lot of things planned. We have questions regarding potential trades for the Raptors in the future. We have extension talk for Davion Mitchell right away. We will be going over film of Scottie Barnes. But Louis, first, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Always touched when I get to be with you in person or over the computer. Just looking forward to it. Enjoying.
Right. Okay, a couple off the top
Right.
show notes. Louis, I'm going to ask when you're not speaking to hit the mute button. That will make my editing easier later. Listeners, watchers, I will ask you, please like, subscribe, comment. I'm finally doing it at the top of a podcast. Yosef in chat always tries to remind me. Thank you very much, Yosef. The first thing we're going to talk about, Davion Mitchell. I think he's been better than expected. The Raptors obviously didn't have to try to do very much to get him on the roster. He was a salary dump. They actually got second round picks with him. Sasha Vezenkov went elsewhere. He didn't stick around. Davion has. He's provided impact. He is currently the big minutes winner for the Raptors. Louis has written a piece about him recently. I have done a Nintendo 64 soundtrack laden video essay. If after this you want to go watch it, it's pretty good. Louis, I will ask you first and foremost, what is the elevator pitch on Davion's, I guess, time with Toronto so far?
Yeah, I think you and Trey talked about this a little bit. And one question I find myself coming back to is, has he done what you expected, more than you expected? And honestly, I think the elevator pitch is he's been the best case realistic expectation from before the season, right? Toronto needs guard defense. He's provided that by such a wide margin, the best on the roster. It's pretty easy to argue he's been the best defender on the roster. A lot of the passing stuff still coming on, right? The turnover to the assist to turnover ratio was low when he was a backup guard. It's been, or it was good when he was backup guard. It's been less good as a Raptor. That's life when you ask him to start. I don't think we're looking for like a breakout star, but he's really, really kept the boat afloat when the Raptors needed someone to do that.
So something I really wanted to ask is, because this was something I was looking at, is like, hey man, it seems like there's one guy on the Raptors who's actually really good at defending closeouts, and his name is Davion Mitchell. Is there any like under the radar defensive thing that you've been picking up from ostensibly the Raptors' best defender so far?
I just think his physicality not on the ball. Like everyone's like, oh, off night he's great on the
He
ball. He digs
tackled
in.
Jaylen Brown in the open court.
Exactly. He just like I mean not as much that. But yeah, he just like, he tags guys. He bumps cutters. He just, for all of Toronto's really aggressive defense, they can get burned off the ball. Like the on ball and the off ball has definitely had a gap between it. For Davion as well, but if you're going to make aggressive on-ball defense really play, it has to come with, grinding the rest of the offense to a halt elsewhere. And everyone needs to improve there, bar none, except maybe Scottie. We haven't seen a ton of him. He's like legitimately excellent. But Davion has been better, I think, than anyone. And no one's really talked about that too much. And he's been pretty solid there.
Okay, so basically, in the pitch for why Davion would make sense with the Raptors and why a lot of people were excited about the idea of getting him on the Raptors is like, hey, maybe if he shoots the 3-point shot better and we let him defend a bunch, then it'll be good. Then it'll work. And it actually hasn't gone that way. Like, he's gotten to defend a bunch. The Raptors are one of the number one teams in the NBA at pressuring in the backcourt at the high pickup point. He is obviously essential to that. They can't do it without him, really. Jamal has had a really tough time picking up that same level of defense. But he's been, and before the game, like the last game, he and Jakob were ranked as the 6th best pick and roll partnership in the whole league. In the whole league. I don't know what it is today, but after however many games, 15 games together, that status. What do you make of that? And what do you think is driving his success as a pick and roll ball handler?
I make of that Jakob Poeltl's incredible.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who's running pick and rolls with Jakob Poeltl. That's really the column A through F. Those are the real takeaways. G and onward, we can talk about his passing's been a little better on the move. He's really, really consistent at I am getting to the rim, right? Come hell or high water. Especially when he rejects like that little crossover back. He can get there. And he's pretty athletic at getting a shot up when he gets there. Maybe the best point guard Raptors have had for a bit at getting to the rim and finishing there. Top Schroeder, top Van Fleet. But yeah, really, Poeltl screens are creative. Like they create for.
Yeah, this was kind of what I talked a little bit about in the video essay, is that, Davion, per the numbers, is, when you include passes, just like a middle of the road pick and roll player. But when he runs it with Yak, it's great, because Davion is a guy who doesn't really threaten the rim very much. He's also a guy who, when he runs a pick and roll, what he wants to do is get the ball to his big. A lot of guys, when they run the pick and roll, are like, I want to shoot. I want to score. And that is actually the best imperative, I think, is to put your scoring first and then react after you apply that pressure. But when it comes to Davion, we're looking at a guy who has done a very good job at just being like, hey, when I run this pick and roll with Yak, I'm getting him the ball. He can roll to 13 feet. He can roll to 7 feet. Whatever it is, that guy is going to provide scoring. That guy is going to be the one that I get the ball to. Outside of that, it's been a little bit tough maybe. But now that we know, like, hey, he has really good synergy with Jakob Poeltl, who Joe Mazzulla has called one of the best players in the NBA, a bear. Now that we know that, he's really impressive defensively, we had a question about, a couple questions actually, what an extension looks like. It's probably a little bit early for that, but this is a mailbag. This is cannon fodder. Where are you on an extension and how Davion fits going forward?
I think he's actually really played his way into the Raptors saying, we might want this guy in the future. Like, especially because the shooting should come around when he's not above the break and he's just standing in the corners. Like last year, he didn't shoot well above the break. He shot well overall because all his threes were from the corner. And when Toronto's healthy, like we even saw with Scottie Barnes, he was spending more time in the corners, and that should really bring his shooting percentages up. I don't think Toronto is going to throw a bag at him. He's not the type of guy who's like, we need to keep him in house no matter what. But the idea of we might, take some of our mid-level exception money and toss it his way, see what happens. Like this is a guy who, if Toronto wanted to try to trade him to the Lakers, or they'd be getting assets in return. Like he's played his way into a positive guy. Sacramento salary dumped him. Couple months later, I think teams probably want this guy on their roster right now.
I actually think they would have a tough time getting like quote unquote assets for wait,
second round.
Did your baby just open the door?
That's correct.
He left. So anyway, I think that they would have probably like a tough time getting assets for him, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been good.
I don't mean major assets. Like we're talking small change. Either way, couch cushion change would have been going the other way to get him, which is what happened with Toronto. Couch cushion change now coming to Toronto. I'm not talking about a first round pick or anything, but I do think it's flipped which direction that assets are going.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about Davion. There's 100 people in watching us right now. Make sure to like the video, all that good stuff. It helps promote it to other people. Louis, a little bit more on Davion, but now since your child has left the room, we will get into the film room, which I will cut for a segment later as well. But what does you understand money somewhat? Most people do to some degree. You've coined the term couch cushion change in the NBA lexicon. What are you looking at for Davion? What do you think is a win?
You mean salary wise?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not the
I
best
put
at
this on
contract
you. I
stuff.
put this on you.
I think you're probably looking to pay him more than minimum, more than like a rookie, but something like 7-8 million a year might be friendly for the team. Who knows if Davion would take something like that? He might get a little bit more money elsewhere, but I think there's probably a happy medium somewhere below 10.
Okay, below 10. I think he probably tries to get closer to like 12. But then
Yeah,
again, like how free agency went this past off season,
Gary just
it
got the
was
minimum.
it was very tough for guys to earn anywhere near the mid-level if they weren't getting the mid-level. It was very
Yeah,
hard to find earners between like 11 million and 22 million. Like that was a really strange place. It was like
yeah,
a liminal space almost. Yeah, I think that is interesting. We have a lot more
strange,
questions to
almost
answer.
liminal.
Yes. We have a lot more questions to get to, but for everybody in chat, we're going to get into a film breakdown. The conceit here, of course, is that Scottie Barnes joined the Raptors. The defense looked really good. And while the Wolves aren't they don't have a humming offense, and especially without Mike Conley, they really struggled to get Rudy Gobert involved. Yes, but having Scottie there it was a boon for the Raptors defense, as it should be. And even with he was a little bit more passive last game, he's protecting his face. It was recently broken.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about how in not just the steal video, not just the on ball actions, but how when he's off ball, he actually positively changes the complexion of what the Raptors are doing defensively. Louis, as I go and get the film ready, tell me what you thought of Scottie's defense, I suppose.
I was really impressed. I think last year Scottie flipped from, sometimes excellent and sometimes a real defensive negative. Last year he became a really, really positive defender, grading out as like a top defender for a stretch there because the Raptors, and you've covered this a lot, put him as like that help side, tagger at the rim, clean stuff up, able to meet people. Now that does take him out of the gaps a little bit when he's not, above the break. And that's where I saw him at his most effective against Minnesota, was actually not helping from the corners, but more from, that nail extended or even above the break.
Perfect.
Yeah,
This is
really
what
good in a lot of areas though. Like that's what, if the Raptors are going to have a good defense, a lot of it is going to go on Scottie's shoulders. And it has to be, he's excellent as that help side guy at the rim. He's excellent at that nail digger from above the break. He's excellent on the ball in isolation, even against guards, which has been probably his biggest weakness to this point. Like if they're going to be a good defense, he has to be excellent everywhere. So it's great seeing him be excellent in a couple different spots.
Yeah. And to your point, they put him on Ant quite a bit during that other game. He didn't play a whole bunch of minutes, but when they couldn't put Ochai or Davion on him, guess who stepped up? It was Scottie. And so you can see good defense even when other teams make shots. And you talked about how good Scottie has been at the nail, in the gaps, that kind of stuff. And this is a made shot from Anthony Edwards, but he identifies that Julius Randle is right there. He's not super scared of Julius Randle's gravity as a shooter. And he knows that, hey, the screen is forming on Ochai's left side. It's going to be tough for Yok to contain. Let me scoot over here and completely plug up a driving lane. And that's you can see him peek over at Julius. He knows what he's doing. And I know Ant has been a lot more likely to shoot threes this year. And it's not exactly hard to get him to pull up into something like that. But Scottie's presence completely nullifies any driving action here. And that's a great thing because This was identified as a 31-foot pull-up on NBA.com. I don't think it's 31, but that's a tough shot to hit. And Scottie's presence in this action and knowing that he can, if the ball goes to Julius Randle, recover, that's something that he adds immediately to this defense. And it's easy peasy defense, and nobody else who's guarding these actions for the Raptors, like Ochai doesn't have that size to do that. RJ isn't going to be able to do that. Grady isn't going to be able to do that. He is basically the sole player on the roster who can provide this type of impact. Did you notice anything else on that play, Louis?
Yeah, I mean, look at the corners. You have RJ Barrett and you have Grady Dick. They kind of need to defer driving. Like, this was something I wrote a lot about covering the Bucks last year, right? Writing for the team, is they were excellent at manipulating who the helper was as the corner defender. That's something smart defenses really think about, or smart offenses. You think about, who you're attacking on the ball. LeBron really revolutionized how that was covered by attacking. Okay, you come out, your guy is going to have to switch. I'll attack him. But offenses now, it's like, well, if I put this guy here and you sink and switch, then that guy's in the corner. And if we drive that way, well, he's going to have to be the helper. So Toronto is RJ and Grady as the helpers. They're not going to be effective at the rim. So Scottie has to do something. Like, you just can't get someone going to the rim. So terrific. What a win. He pulls up from 31. Obviously he makes it, right? But this is the thing about Toronto's defense. There's going to be sacrifices, and Scottie's the guy who can, tilt it to the positive.
Yeah. And for podcast listeners, I will actually be more descriptive from here on forth. Sorry to exclude you a little bit to this point. My apologies. So the second play we're looking at, it's a pick and roll that started with Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert. Jakob Poeltl is obviously Gobert's check. Scottie is Randle's check. Scottie goes under that screen to the other side of Gobert. So he tries to, switch it back. Randle tries to switch it back over. Gobert tries to get into the lane. Scottie has to dive back. And Randle is going to trigger a handoff. And watch what Scottie is able to do here. Just completely jumps the handoff and steals the ball. That type of explosion, it's good. It's not super common for a player of his size. But the big thing here is the aggressiveness and the size. If that is Ochai jumping out on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, or if that is, let's say, RJ Barrett, those guys probably can't throw as much size and physicality at him. But Scottie, he can dip and duck under this screen from Gobert. He and Jakob, even though they don't play this screen coverage very well, they're huge. So they gum up the play, right? And then when Randle options into something else, Scottie steps in, blocks off the passing lane, and then he just jumps the ball here, mauls the guy without fouling him. That's do you have any other takeaways from that? Because that's tremendous defense to me.
And look what he does before he jumps into McDaniels. He hits Randle. Right. Yep. So that Randle, as a short roll outlet, would have been available. So the turnover didn't happen. That could have been a really deadly play, right? Considering, like you said, they didn't defend the initial Randle action so well, but hitting a guy on the roll so that he's not available for the pass. So he floats out. All that stuff compounds and opens up the availability of a steal like that.
Yep. And just, great jump. Good defense all around from the Raptors. This one I wanted to show, it's a complete nothing burger. So for audio listeners, we're looking at Scottie Barnes. He's basically like the low man. He's guarding the corner. Ochai Agbaji is guarding Anthony Edwards at the point of attack, and Ant is about to drive him. The strong side corner is Grady Dick. And Julius Randle is in the corner as well. So Scottie ostensibly is not really involved in this play very much, but he does something that Pascal Siakam at his defensive prime did a lot, which he completely cheated his side because he's huge. So the play develops, and he gets the ball to the corner because Grady, digs in from the strong side corner. Grady gets out for a closeout, good closeout, contains the ball, and Scottie realizes that he has Jaden McDaniels in the corner here. He knows that with his size and with the coverage on ball, that's going to be very tough for Julius to skip the pass over. And since Ant exits the paint and goes out, we're looking at, okay, there's a driving lane here that Jakob can't contain really because that leaves Rudy open for a lob. And if there's two things Scottie can do here, is if Jakob goes over to plug up the driving lane, Scottie cracks down on Rudy. But then that also leaves a couple passes open and leaves RJ as the weak side defender. Scottie's a smart guy. He knows he's a capable defender who can recover to a lot of places. What does he do? He cheats this and goes over to the complete other side. And why he does this is because he knows it's a short clock situation. He knows that they don't want to reverse the ball over here. And he knows that he won't pay a penalty for jumping over to the other side and completely plugging up the lane. These, like, that's not technically what you're supposed to do, is to completely jump over the other side of the lane. But this is a good way to throw bodies, to add extra pressure, to make things feel suffocating on defense. Louis, did you notice anything else going on in this play?
No, there was nothing to me that stood out elsewhere. Like you say, good defenders make those reads outside of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, just basically a nothing burger, but nothing burger is where a lot of defense happens. You know, it's a missed shot. It's not sexy. He's off the ball. But yeah, nothing, couch cushion change, nothing burgers. We have so much going on here. And this, I just wanted to include something where Scottie wasn't at his best, and to actually use this as a frame of reference of this is actually what the Raptors have had a lot of this year. And so Scottie is, again, the low man, the weak side corner. And there's a pick and roll between Ant Edwards and Rudy Gobert. Ochai goes under the pick. Jakob is trying to contain and try and like hedge and recover. It's really tough to contain Ant Edwards with a head of steam. And
for podcast listeners, Jakob Poeltl is right now the furthest player away from Toronto's rim.
Exactly. And there was basically like, and I don't blame Jakob for this. So Ochai going under the screen tries to jump back and contain Ant. And he kind of like, he does a pretty good job of doing so. RJ is on Julius Randle in the strong side corner. So he's like, do I leave? Do I not? And RJ is a pretty passive off-ball defender, I would say. Like he doesn't get too many steals. He doesn't get too many blocks over the course of his career. He's usually trying to be like a contain type of defender, try not to make mistakes rather than play make type of defender. And Scottie walks over. Like he's not getting into too much here. He just kind of lackadaisically walks over. He's not exactly sure if he's supposed to make the big jump over here because Ochai is kind of there. Ochai is kind of not on Anthony Edwards, but Scottie kind of gets stuck in no man's land, and he doesn't really provide a lot of pop as the rebounder, and then Rudy Gobert crashes in. So that's a bad play from Scottie, and I'm not trying to do this as like, oh, low light watching. Every player has bad defensive plays. Everyone else on this roster has had many more than Scottie, to be quite honest with you. But the thing is, what happened there with Scottie, where a guy crashed the lane, the weak side, like the low man wasn't very effective, and then an offensive rebounder crashed the glass and allowed the other team to score. That's what has happened a lot with the Raptors this season. And Scottie, we will see later, actually puts a stop to this sometime. Louis, any other remarks on this film?
Yeah, it's not low light watching. It's actually worthwhile to look at when the defense isn't doing what it's supposed to. And that's, to me, that's on RJ more than anyone else. But like, you could put anyone in Scottie's position there. It doesn't change the outcome of the play. And there's so much of a burden on his shoulders that if anyone else is in Scottie's position, it needs to make the defense worse, right? He's the guy who has to lift everything around him, which is unfair, obviously, but that's sort of the way the team is built. So that's what it looks like when Scottie isn't unique on defense.
Yeah, a lot of what happens in this play is like the Raptors, we saw it in the play before. Grady helped off the strong side corner, but a lot of the times the Raptors don't help off the strong side corner. So in this position, let's say like Anthony Edwards has a head of steam downhill. Grady and Scottie have to cover up the whole half of the court. Scottie would rotate all the way over. RJ would stay at home. Grady would X out to the corner, and Scottie would extend to above the break, and Jakob Poeltl would catch up into the back of the paint. Like, that's a possibility of how the Raptors might try to do this. But also we saw another play where Grady helped off the strong side corner and it helped, and RJ didn't do that. Yeah. So just we don't know what the coach said. Like, we don't know what Darko said according to certain matchups and that kind of stuff, right? Even though it was the same driver Ant and the same guy in the corner in both plays, there's a different response. Make of that what you will. This is a great example. Louis, I know you watched this beforehand, so I'm going to let this play, and you actually take the reins here if you're comfortable with that.
Okay. So
Hell
right
yeah.
now we have the Wolves and Horns. The ball is way above the break. Both corners filled. Okay.
That's Horns.
Yeah, that's Horns. Okay, we enter to Randall. Mogbo goes to cheat and just misses, right? So I actually remember this play from when I was at the game. So Mobo's behind the ball. The Raptors are now defending 4-on-3 because DiVincenzo is still at half court, and so his defender is above, just out of the play. Mobo's out of the play. So RJ, who is in the strong side corner, is sort of, now it's like emergency, right? Got to put out a fire somewhere. So he cheats sort of halfway in between his man in the strong side corner and the ball. And Scottie starts digging from the other elbow, the other like horns, right? Scottie, though, picks up the ball, stops the drive from Randall. RJ sees the ball go to his corner. Now he's pretty far away. And we have that X out from Mogbo, who is behind the play. Really terrific way to get yourself involved. Like when you are out of the play, you have to find a way to impact it in some way. And Mogbo just blows it up. So now there's a drive from the corner from Nickeil Alexander-Walker. RJ picks it up, goes out to the other corner, miss three.
Yep. So the big thing here that I love, is that, again, Scottie is on Naz Reid. If this is Jakob Poeltl in Scottie's position, and Jakob Poeltl is a good defender, but he isn't going to explode into the lane to make Randall pick this up. If Randall gets this one-on-one against RJ Barrett, I actually think that's a bucket, like a really high percentage of the time. RJ Barrett, I've loved a lot of what he's done this year, but he is not like stop Randall with a head of steam level of defender. As you said,
also, you meet a guy 15 feet from the rim, it's way easier to stop them than when you meet a guy 6 feet from the rim.
Yes, exactly. And Mogbo, again, great job. And also to this point is like RJ rotates over, and this is like a scram. This is a really sneaky little scram. It's like Nickeil drives, RJ contests, and Mogbo takes Randall here, right? Like that's an important switch. It's an under, and like Boucher in the weak side, that's a big contest coming your way. And then Shed coming down to corral this ball, like that's just good defense. They did a really good job there, even though the Timberwolves got a pretty good shot. But the play got blown up because Mogbo got over eager at the start, and the Raptors scrambled to get back into it. I think it was just like, hey, everyone tap yourselves on the back. We were in the tough position. We gave up a 4-on-3, and now we're back in the swing of things. Okay,
that's
everybody.
The type of play that you show as the coach the next day to be like, look at these guys.
These are my guys, these guys. Yeah, exactly. So this one, we're looking at Ant Edwards. He has Chris Boucher in isolation, and Scottie, he just doubles. I love when the Raptors play aggressive. McDaniels over here, I believe, unless that's Nickeil. I'm pretty sure that's McDaniels. Very similar hairstyle, very similar frame. Both headband boys. My apologies. So the ball goes out to him, and this is a bad job of McDaniels. He should be at the 3-point line here. This is kind of a problem, is being too passive away from actions. Like he moves out, and he should be spacing out to the open part of the floor here. For audio listeners, McDaniels is spacing out like 8 feet behind the 3-point line. That helps nobody. You're not in a position to help anybody. Yes, exactly. Scottie jumps the ball, gets the ball out of Ant's hands. It's clutch time. They're up by 2 in the fourth quarter. This happens a lot in clutch time, and Scottie doubles. Chris Boucher switches over, and look, the chain starts. The Raptors team defense. It was Scottie's guy. Grady bumps up to him. Scottie is now on Ant. Boucher was trying to get into rotation. Davion is going to have to extend to the corner here. Everybody's trying to find a man. You have to hustle. This is team defense. Chris comes down, and he's not really on anybody, but the shot is going up, so everybody's got to crash. And this is what I said about Scottie later when Rudy came into the lane and grabbed that offensive rebound. What Scottie does here is he initiated the double to get the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands, a star guard. Then he cracks down on Gobert, boxes out, and ends up winning the basketball. This is size. This is aggressiveness. This is good defense. It's not like a huge play or anything like that. But did you notice anything else here, Louis?
I was talking with Joe Wolfond during this game. We were sitting beside each other, media row, and he asked a question I love. He was like, "What is
We
what
do
does
love
this
Joe.
defense? He's the best. What does this defense look like if it's good? Right? Like, what is the path to being good? How does it look if it's good? And honestly, it looks like this, right? It looks like this where Grady's not getting bullied. He's getting helped by the by McDaniels not being in shooting.
He has a positive defensive on-off now, by the way. Isn't that crazy?
That's
Grady
terrific. I mean, he's playing a lot with Davion.
With the big boys. Yep.
Yeah, and Jakob. It looks like this, where Pirtle and Boucher commits almost a mistake by commission in that he's trying to recover into the play, and he ends up going to the same place that Jakob is. But that's great. You're going to a guy in scramble, right? And they're helped by DiVincenzo, I think, is in the corner shooting. They're helped by the shot going up rather than like continuing to attack.
Short clock situation too.
Yeah, short clock. And ultimately, it's Scottie who makes the play, right? That's what the defense looks like. The other guys are doing stuff. They're getting out. They're closing out. They're not getting beat. And Scottie's the one who makes the play. That's what it looks like when it's good.
Yeah. Also, I think there's something here. There's something here too, because the ball goes out, Scottie doubles. And like, does Scottie leave a little bit early? Sure. But again, the Wolves, like Ant is way off the line here. Ant, you probably want to see him shape up to right here. You want to see like JD go down here. You want to shift the floor, especially in this, like, or even like Ant go to the corner and Rudy maybe puts a pin in on Scottie or something like that. Like, that would be in good interpretive play. But Scottie, like, they're not being proactive, the Timberwolves. So Scottie cracks down, gets a rebound, size, aggressiveness, defense, man. They've won 2 in a row. They're world beaters. This play next stops a little bit early, starts a little bit late, but basically Grady gets a little bit like he gets pushed off by DiVincenzo. Scottie's check is Randall. Grady is on the floor. Scottie has to step up on Dante, and Grady is going to catch up back to the play, but he's starting way behind a Randall screen. Scottie steps out. Hero, help out your buddy, right? And what does this mean? This is Julius Randle getting a guy like Grady Dick on an empty side post up. Raptors fans, you have seen the Raptors attack this way with Scottie and Pascal, even OG so many times over the past however many years. How do you want to help this, right? The problem that the Raptors ran into most times when this play would happen is the ball goes to Randall, and let's pretend Randall is Scottie or Randall is Pascal or Randall is OG. The Raptors always wanted the low man to double because they found it easier for Scottie and Pascal and OG to dump off to like a dunker spot guy. They didn't have the requisite shooting on the floor to punish if the double came from the top. Scottie, he sees that Randall had his back to him. He knows that Randall is not the fastest passing processor. He jumps him. I love this. And Dante, again, spacing out in probably the wrong part of the floor. He just starts moving there, but Randall is trying to work his way through. Now, Jakob is super late. Jakob got back up by Rudy to like nobody's business. Jakob doesn't know where he is, and that's fine. Players make mistakes. Randall doesn't see that. RJ's job right now is to cover 2 guys because Davion didn't really crack down on Rudy either. What happens? Randall sees the corner. RJ is pointing at Gobert. Like, this is insane that Randall didn't see Gobert. RJ makes a good read here because he reads Randall's eyes and he jumps the corner pass. This is a good play. And it doesn't end up rewarding RJ, but like, good thought, good job. And we have a drive to the rim and a missed dunk. And this play obviously was the play right before Grady grabbed the ball and went all the way down the court and threw the lob to RJ. That is film. We're done. We have talked about. I have a vein in my. I've been talking too much. Louis, how you doing, man? Holy smokes!
My high school basketball coach always. Well, he used to say a lot, but one of the things he always said was, "Whoever throws the first punch in the fight usually wins." I think a lot of people say that. That's a common saying as related to sports. But the Raptors a commonality in all those film things. They were the aggressors. They were the proactors. They were throwing the first punch. Like you see that with Dante and Ant and Jaden spacing out in non-active shooting positions. Like if you are proactive,
Grady would be active in those situations. I
that's
promise.
right. If you're proactive as a defense, you're taking advantage of those mistakes, right? And also, if you're proactive as a defense, there's room for error. You can rotate and not go to the right guy, but you're still in space, right? I saw someone saying, I'm going to scroll up to actually give him a shout. I saw Joseph saying that Chris Boucher was suffocating the passing lane. That's absolutely right. Even if you're rotating and scramble and you're not picking up anyone in particular, you're still clogging passing lanes, right? And so even though you're proactive, there's room for error for mistakes. There's just a bigger window. And look, good teams will beat that. And the Wolves had a bad game. And you're playing the Celtics, they'll find a way to turn those little errors into mistakes, or into points. That's fine. The Raptors aren't at a point where they'd beat the Celtics anyway. And I really, really like them being the guy who throws the first punch on defensive possessions.
Yep. And it's especially helpful when we look at a team like the Wolves, who they do a great job creating from a standstill, like Randall and Ant. I know people have their ideas about Randall, but Randall is an underrated player overall, I think, and he is really strong creating from a standstill. The Raptors being aggressive, throwing that punch and making like the Wolves into a reactive team, super strong, especially on a night where Dante didn't shoot the ball well, because Dante is that release valve. Really, he really was for the Knicks. He knows how to play off of Randall. He understands how to play off of Edwards. But yeah, like a really impressive defensive stint for the Raptors. Coco said here, let's see, is this replicable as good defense? I'll give that to you first, Louis. Do you think that this stuff is replicable?
Yeah, because I'm not seeing defense driven by individuals, right? I think that a lot of those defensive stands, you take Boucher out and you put, Mogbo in. You take an Ochai out and you put Davion. Like, it's not driven by this is the guy who can do that and the only guy who can do that. One of those the Scottie Steele was like only Scottie can do that. But that's driven by system, by schematics, by players knowing, by gumption, by factfulness, yeah, by guys knowing what they're supposed to do in what situations, by reacting early. So yeah, to me, that's actually like the definition of replicable.
Yep. Like good question as well from Coco. As you said, who can replicate what Scottie is doing? One of the players who's been the biggest positives on defense so far this year and will allow us to transition into Trey's question. Has Mogbo earned a permanent rotation spot, or would you send him to the 905 for more reps? I will start with you. Oh, also, there's a whole bunch of people watching right now. Yosef, shout out to you for always reminding me. Make sure to like the video. It helps push it to other people. But Mogbo.
I think if a guy is winning minutes, you keep him around. You don't send him to the 905 because you want him on the court. And I don't think they can do without him. He does stuff that they need. He does stuff that no one else does as that switch big. I really like what Mogbo's brought as a rookie, and I don't think they should send him to the 905 right now.
The tough thing is I think we're really seeing the limitation of his offense. Like, he's having a whale of a time. I am interested to see how it looks when Scottie is running more actions, because Mogbo is a guy who his catch radius is significantly smaller than Jakob's. He is not able to carve out as much space as a screener or as a roller. It is harder to hit him in his passing windows. A guy who has created, like when Boston and Denver were blitzing RJ's pick and roll possessions, for example, both teams that did it quite a lot, Mogbo got opportunities to finish at the rim because RJ would drag the other team so far away. A big avenue would open up. Maybe he gets a dunk, right? But when teams are a little bit more in their conservative set of defense, it's harder for Mogbo to find those opportunities to finish. And a lot of times where he's catching the ball, where it might be dangerous, and especially really dangerous for Jakob, Mogbo has to trigger into handoffs that kind of reset the offense. We're really seeing those limitations. Some of this, I think, maybe just be like a little bit more aggressive on defense. See what the limit of your touch is. Put a shoulder into a guy. And I know Mogbo isn't like a shy player, but I'd like to see that stuff on offense. And as we well know, he's working on his jumper. The Raptors like some of the wing stuff and they project him as such. We'll see how that comes along. He's still like, he's a rookie. He's not going to come and win everything quickly.
Yeah.
And this is a development season. That's something we're kind of looking forward to from Mogbo. The defense, I have like no qualms, zero qualms. He also adds a lot of those like the crimes of passion defensively that we see a guy like Chris Boucher make. Mogbo makes not the same mistakes, but he has crimes of passion on defense. He gets himself and the team into trouble, but he's so willing to play make. And as Joseph pointed out, suffocating passing lanes just by being active and being there. Mogbo, I would like to see stick with the team. There could be a stint in January where he just doesn't find playing time, but I would like him to be with the team.
Yeah, and that sort of the is he in the 905? Because I saw Blackhawk 2K mentioning. I mean, on the road, right? Like if you're in Toronto and there's a game in between Raptors games, great, get him down there. That's fine. But I mean, send him on the road because then you're actually missing out on time with the Raptors. Home games, situation like yesterday, he wasn't missing out on time with the Raptors. They didn't even practice yesterday. So yeah, offensively, what's tough? He is a great jumper, just a great jumper. Right now, his offense
great second jumper.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He double jump like Mario.
His offense is what can he get at the rim, right? It's just entirely at the rim. And he's shooting like 60% at the rim. So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm putting Mario in chat with the G because like Mogbo.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Yahoo! So, okay, great question from Trey. Here's a good question from Love. Quote, if this season ends with the Raps as an 11th seed with no major internal development from Scottie or IQ, what do the Raptors do? That's my biggest concern with the team. Don't have to answer if this question is too redundant. This question isn't redundant. This is a really great question because this season, I know the Raptors won 2 in a row, but they haven't won a ton of games. I know they haven't been healthy, but we don't know how good they will be when healthy. This season is a platform for the players rather than it is an exercise in trying to win a bunch of games. Where do you sit if Scottie and IQ are a little bit more stagnant?
This season has been the absolute reverse of last year. Last year, almost no one seemed to get better except for Scottie. But because Scottie's the best player in the future and he got so much better, then great, win of a season, even though it's just one guy. This year, everyone seems to be improving across the board, but quickly didn't look like he fit perfectly with what the Raptors were trying to do in his few games there. Obviously, he was hurt coming back from injury. Like it was just a couple games. So many reasons why there's not a ton to take away from that. Barrett had a down streak and his efficiency hasn't been where it was last year. Barnes, despite being really solid against the Wolves, hasn't been that takeover offensive player. His efficiency also low. So, a lot of improvement across the board, but questions about the top end talent, maybe more this year than last.
Also, I'll piggyback off of that. The improvements we're seeing from so many players on the Raptors, not all of those improvements stick around on a contending team or even a winning team, right? Like Ochai, we have to see like in a team that's just like running up and down the floor and not winning that many games, we see he's able to find shots and there's so many possessions to go around. He's able to make it work. Last game when the Raptors win against a good team, he falls to the wayside a little bit. They need Davion in there instead of Ochai. Like, and I'm not trying to critique Ochai, just saying like he fell away from the game a bit. As the Raptors do get more competitive, some of the guys who showed stuff, maybe they don't fall away completely, but aspects they showed when there was less leverage in these games, less importance on winning. Not everything like that will stick around because guess what? IQ is back. Scottie's back. All these guys are playing again. And those little, intrepid leaps into doing this or that, those possessions just aren't there. And you didn't advance quickly enough to actually get an opportunity to do that. Like, that is a possibility. And I'll say, like, Louis and I have been like, I've been skeptical of IQ stardom. That is prior to this season. And like Scottie, I wrote that big piece in his rookie year. I've thought he's going to be a star for a long time, but any critiques of their games currently is not really of this season. It's like of what they brought in. Neither has had an opportunity to really like stretch their legs as far as this season goes. It's just, Jeff Tomlinson also asked a good question. Said, was the Raps doubling Ant on the ball a strategy the Raps should use against other high-scoring point guards or specific to playing Ant? Yeah, they should do that, especially if other teams are going to play catch-and-hold style basketball away from it, and especially like the way that Scottie jumped out on DiVincenzo when Grady was overexposed. I mean, Scottie saw that Chris Boucher was guarding Anthony Edwards. He went to go get his guy. Let me get the ball out of this guy's hands. If that's Davion there, probably not a double. These are reads that good defenders make. In the scouting report before the game, you go over certain situations. In timeouts, you go over certain situations. So, like, really good question, Jeff. And the Raptors will be doubling outside of that. There will be more doubles this year.
As a read, probably not as the strategy. They're not playing 2018 James Harden.
Yeah. And Calcino actually says the way this team can recover doubles can be useful. This is where size really matters. Mogbo, Boucher, Scottie, all these guys are pretty quick-footed for their size. All of them have these big wingspans. And when they maraud around the court, it's pretty good. Okay. Lineup questions you said you were excited about, Louis. From Bobby Webster Loves Yoga, quote, based on the current roster, what would be your optimized lineup for winning? I'll start with you.
I think the starters that we all expected at the start of the year is probably the best lineup, right? Like IQ, Grady, RJ, Scottie, Yak. That group can do some damage. That could beat other starting groups, right? Like win its minutes against starters, which is very difficult. Like it's very hard to win your minutes as a starting group in the NBA. But I think something that's been really, really impressive from guys like Ochai, Davion, Mogbo, is they can do, even if that group is going to win its minutes, they're not going to be a plus 10 or anything. They're going to win by small margins if they do win them. Mm-hmm. I think you can do real damage as a transitional team when you're facing other bench and transitional units. Like a Mogbo at center, when Scottie is out there to really run up the score, you can get some pretty like if you maybe get Jameson Battle, Grady Dick in there for tons of shooting, tons of offense, and something like Davion to really like lock it up on defense, that could be fun. That could be a really strong group that can win by 6 points in like 4 minutes, force the other team to call a timeout, come out with a different look. This team has obviously lost a lot of games. They have had a lot of fun stories. And when they're healthy, fun stories turn into lots of lineup opportunities.
Yeah. That's one of the most fun things to write about in a season where, because as you well know, as I well know, Louis, we have written very in-depth pieces on the Raptors for years. The unique, like, oh, this is a thing that's happening. People cared a lot more about me saying, this play works for the Raptors when they won games than when, like, I remember I did this big video essay last year on like, these are the Raptors' best plays. And it got like 1.3 thousand views on YouTube. And I was like, yep, nobody cares about this team. They just like are like, why aren't they good? Nobody cares about the process. But when the team is good, suddenly process is very interesting. We have, and I'll use this to segue into my lineup. Tim, big shout out, Tank for Wiggins legend, RR. Member Tim Waring says, is IQ better off the bench as instant offense and keep Mitchell in the starting unit to keep their defense going? And Devin Landry says, I think better with IQ in the starting lineup and Davion off the bench. I agree with Devin, but I will say, I think the Raptors, there's a chance that their best lineup this year could be IQ and Davion backcourt, RJ, Scottie, Jakob. And the reason for that is that Davion is really good defensively, and they will have opportunities, I suspect, when they play teams that are like the way that Mathurin was kind of just putting up loads of points on Grady. if Grady's having a lot of trouble defensively in a matchup, I know Darko has said, I want Grady to guard every player 1 through 4 in the league.
Yeah.
There's no hiding. That could be a stopper to this. But as far as like maximizing winning minutes, there's every chance that lineup with Davion instead of Grady could be extremely good. I mean, Davion won all of his minutes like by a huge margin. The Kings always had great numbers when Davion played with Fox, when Davion played with Sabonis. So Davion is a guy who just let him give teams hell on defense and let him try and sort out fitting around really good offensive players. And even to this point, like the Davion Jakob partnership is really strong. Imagine if instead of like Ochai rotating around that, it was Quickly. Quickly, as much as he was doing catch and hold stuff in the few minutes he's played with the Raptors this year, he still shoots the ball. Like he shoots the damn ball. He has shot 40% from 3 just all the time. And I think that's probably a good one. Okay. Couple lineups there. Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, trades. Okay, so we had I think 4 questions about trades. Let's see. From Barbecue Time, Peace Key, what non-Raptors role player would you want on the current Raptors via trade? From Chrome Phoenix, maybe a bit early, but do you guys see Raps making any major or minor trades at the deadline this year, or will they just keep the team intact and see where the team takes them, lottery/play-in? And I also got a couple DMs about trades. Louis, your trade cap is firmly on the head. Trades. Any thoughts?
I think the league is shaping up for Bruce Brown to actually be an attractive piece. There's a lot of teams that are not what they want to be. And given the current cap market, he's an expiring guy who won a championship. I think Bruce Brown probably they can trade.
It didn't look such like a long way. Like he was incredible in the finals. He was so good on Denver. Like he was really, really good. He is just probably the arthroscopic surgery that he had, I think probably was around for some time. And when they went in to do the surgery, anyway, he hasn't tried that hard, I will say, in Indiana and Toronto. Bruce has not brought as much energy to the court as he has to his cowboy outfits, which I love.
Which are excellent.
I love. We were too early, man. We were
minute basketball.
Too ahead of the cowboy curve. Yeah, I do think Bruce, there's a strong potential that he gets traded. There have been teams that have sniffed around Chris Boucher for some time, actually. The problem is that the Raptors weren't able to make those trades work, and the teams that wanted Chris Boucher ended up filling those roles elsewhere. And like the Suns, they filled that, like they wanted Boucher, but they went after other guys. And while those other guys didn't work out, they also drafted Ryan Dunn this year, and they're really happy with Ryan Dunn. So it's like that opportunity. Chris Boucher isn't just like, you don't just plop him anywhere. You know, if you're trading for Chris Boucher, you want to play him. You want to have like that spark plug. So how everything develops could be something. That's always a possibility. Jakob, I mean, everybody and their mom has talked about like, does Jakob get traded? I think Jakob's value right now is no higher than it's ever been. He's gotten more usage. He's hitting a lot of shots, but I think teams know like, well, he's getting more of the ball. You can, if you want, juice a guy's numbers, and credit to Yak for being juiceable, but I don't think this changes how teams perceive him probably.
I also think he has a ton of value to the Raptors.
Yes, of course.
Ability to screen and pass, and just like, I'm writing a piece about Toronto's delay action, and I think my lead is going to be just like playing video games because he is the controller. Like he has the offense in his hands. Like, no, I'm moving over here, moving over there. Yeah. That ability to just be excellent, and no one else on the Raptors can do that like he can. Like you don't fill that without him. That helps Grady get better. That helps Jacoby get better. That's like a really valuable skill that I don't know if those guys improve as quickly or as much or in the same areas as they would with Yak on the team.
Jakob he facilitates everything. The controller bit is a great one. I can't wait to read that piece. But also, like, you have to watch this team, man. You have to watch this team. And you and I have talked about this forever, actually. We've been hitting this, like, Jakob is completely essential to facilitating possessions that matter. If you don't play possessions that matter, you don't improve. If Grady Dick isn't coming off of a screen that gives him clearance, then how does he get to the ball to improve his on-ball stuff? If Grady Dick isn't getting to play those empty side pick and rolls for the first time since Kansas because Jakob is giving him a lot of space, he doesn't get to make those reads ever. Never. He just won't get to make them. So great. And Amit Kumar says, not gonna lie, Jakob and Golden State would be unstoppable. Like the non-racist Bogut. Very powerful aura. Very, very powerful aura.
Who finishes everything too. Like Bogut wasn't like that on offense.
Well, Bogut's push shot was not really not at the same level. Okay, what is from Ajit said, if you could add one type of young player to grow with this team, what kind of player would it be and why? I find myself leaning towards a big wing with the potential to develop plus defense and shooting. Rare player types I know, end quote. I think I watched Tari Eason, and I think Tari Eason is it's incredible. And I have a friend.
You and everyone though right now.
And here's why I'm saying this. I have a friend who put me on Tari Eason very early. Before he got drafted, he said, why would I draft Jeremy Sohan when I can get better Jeremy Sohan 10 picks later? He now works in the NBA. and he was talking about Tari Eason. That big wing, there's a couple guys on the Rockets who do it. Thompson, Eason, Brooks, that bastard, that guy who wants to get into everything. And I couldn't believe I thought the Grizzlies completely threw Brooks under the bus. I don't care if he's disliked.
Oh yeah.
But acting he was the reason. Shut up. Be real. And everyone, it blew my mind that everyone just hopped on. He's like, oh, he's going to China. No, he's really good, actually. He's shooting 38% from the field currently. He's not performing, but the Rockets win every minute with him on the floor because he gives a damn about defense. He's in the mix on everything. And the Raptors on the wing, they have that in Scottie. And Ochai, while I've liked the defense, that's not Ochai either. Ochai is a contain player. That is the guy. That is the type of young player I want is the wing bastard who is in everything. I don't know if that's an accepted archetype, but do you have any ideas?
That's really important. A huge Davion from the wing position who gets stops in isolation. Honestly, I think they need to up the hooper factor.
Jacoby will help.
Jacoby is that. That's what they drafted Jacoby for.
Grady is that, by the way. Grady is an insane human being with the basketball.
Well, clearly they agree with me because they just drafted these two guys in the lottery, right? And as good as RJ is being as a creator, as a finisher, as a driver, he's just not a scorer in the mid-range. His body fluidity doesn't transition into his jumper like that on the move. And as good as Scottie has been, truncated, stiff. As good as Scottie has been, and his pull-up jumper looks a lot smoother. That's the one part of his game that he's not a star in, and that's fine, right? But that's just he's not gonna be break down, get a bucket over a double team type guy. And they need that guy, right? Every team needs that guy. Maybe Grady gets there. He's still 50% from the mid range. Maybe Jacoby gets there. He is really the guy who I think has the best future in that area. But man, the hooper factor, when all the fun delay passing, cutting, grinds out, you need guys who can still do stuff.
Yeah. Amit Kumar says, low-key, Jacoby is really solid defensively. He fights over screens and hustles. Yeah, that's true. Jacoby, everyone was impressed with, I think in the Raptors roster, in the fan base when Jacoby started jumping out and wasn't getting turnstiled, because we just came off a season where we watched Grady, and Grady at the point of attack, it was like, there's a big strength deficiency here. Jacoby, while he looks quite wiry, stood up to physicality pretty well. That was impressive. I'm really excited for what Jacoby's career looks like, because
I mean, he keeps hurting his shoulder by sticking it into screens going around.
it's the Eastern Bloc boys that are giving him a lot of trouble, man. They just keep
The former Yugoslavia.
Yeah, exactly. Usually it's the Dagestani people who are like laying the blow. But anyway, I think that ends kind of like the basketball talk. Since you and I get asked questions about our life, one from Coach Roach: will Louis be having an Alexander Keith's or an Olan's beer over the holiday? You're a beersman. Come on, beersman.
Poland.
What are you drinking? Oland?
So
Okay.
I used to be a bartender, and I've worked in a couple breweries.
Oh,
So
we
I'm
know.
sort of a
Oh,
I'm
you
sort of a
you
beer
have
snob.
bartender vibes.
Yeah, I used to love that job, man. And so I actually for a long time for a long time, you could give me a beer and I could just drink it and guess with about 50% accuracy what the hops were in the beer, which is like blind, right? Which is pretty strong. I spent a lot of time with brewers, hanging out, learning.
What percentile beer drinker are you?
Percentile.
Yeah, cleaning the glass.
I don't understand the question. Like
Okay.
how quickly, how much, how accurately. I spill so little, if that's the question. It all goes in my mouth. No further comments. But no, so probably not Alexander Keith or Olin's. I'm gonna be drinking, Bellwoods and Indie Ale House and Blood Brothers and those type of Toronto breweries that I love and patronize and really enjoy.
So for anybody listening, you wouldn't believe how many times I've heard Louis reminisce on his bartending life. Oh, I love that job, man. Oh my God. I had the flashbacks like, oh, we've been friends a long time. I have. Yeah. Okay. And this one from S: would you rather sleep next to someone who snores loudly or that moves a lot in bed? All three of us recently for the Montreal training camp trip all slept in the same space, not in the same bed, but the same space. This one is super easy for me. Move a lot in bed. Move as much as you want. I had to share a bed with my dad when he was here. It was like a howitzer. It crushed me, the amount of snoring. I was like, I love my dad very much. I hope he doesn't watch this. He's not an hour and 2 minutes into my weekly mailbag. Dad, you crushed me. You killed me. Louis, you?
I don't mind snoring. The other night, I lay down in bed. It was about midnight, 11:30, and I heard snoring. I looked over at my wife. Wasn't coming from her. So I have 2 kids and a dog. Both children are very young, a little too young to be snoring so loudly that it comes through their doors into my door and into my ears. Like, that's never happened before. My dog, all the way downstairs, extremely far. She does snore, not that loud. I was pleased. I was tickled pink at this development. It was so joyous to me that I had this mystery snorer. Anyway, it was a home invader. It was terrible. No, I'm kidding. So I fell asleep. I never solved it. And I'm excited to have this happen again so I can creep out of bed and go see who's snoring. But yeah, I don't mind it. I take the snoring over the movement. I don't like the movement.
Wait, were you asleep? Like the snoring woke you up, or it was just...
No. I was just lying down to bed. I was like, what's that sound?
A mystery snorer. Wow.
Mystery snorer.
Maybe you got a howitzer child.
I think I do. I think I do. It sounded, my guess was it was the older child, almost 3, just blasting.
Okay. Also a question. Somebody, I can't find it. Somebody asked if Mogbo has potential to be a wing bastard. I do think he does. Yes. He probably has the best chance on the roster currently. Ian Finlayson, also tremendous member of Raptors Republic, says, if it's banter time, Samson, are you looking forward to Dune Prophecy or apprehensive? I look forward To any and all Dune. I look forward to it. This is like the dark mark in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It's like
Any and all. Someone who looked forward to any and all Dune might be reading the Sun's Dune.
Okay, wait. Redacted. I am looking forward to Dune Prophecy. I will be watching it. I will give it a shot. That's where I'm at. I haven't read the Sun's books though. I'm not like, I know you listen to the audiobooks and then you told
I read the
me
first
you're
trilogy.
like, oh, this is fun. And then you're like, it's not so much fun. Can you give us what's the quick pitch?
The prequel. So the Sun wrote a prequel trilogy. Well, he was waiting. Well, because the last Dune book by the father ends on, I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but a very bizarre twist where it seems like the entire universe in which all the books have been set might perhaps be only a small subset of a much larger concept going on
top of a turtle's back.
Exactly.
On top of another turtle.
And the Son felt like he couldn't continue that without further information, but he couldn't have further information because his father had passed. Anyway, so he wrote a prequel trilogy. Eventually, he actually found, it's a weird story, he found like a mystery key to a mystery box in a mystery railroad Union Station or something, and he found his father's notes for like the future of the series, and he ended up continuing the series very far, like 20 more books or some nonsense. But so I read the prequels. I haven't continued the series, but I read the 3 prequel trilogy, and they were not as fun as I thought they were initially, and not probably as worth reading as the father's authorship.
You said bizarre twist in Dune, as if that isn't just the books.
I know. That's everyone who's only seen the movie. He's like, oh, it's a fun concept. No, it gets weird.
Yeah, that feels like a good place to end it. Anything you want to say, Louis, before we get out of here?
You, Samson, have done phenomenal work this year, and I
Lord.
love your podcasts. I love your writing. It's been a pleasure to work with you. Thank you for bringing joy to my life.
How many years we've been working together now?
Probably the better half of a decade.
Fall of 2018.
Something like that.
So 6 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Something like
and
that.
We were friends just because you wrote a good piece. Thank God you did. And I reached out. For anyone who's listening, Trey wanted to make jokes and call my friendship into question. I reached out. I extended the olive branch to Louis from Mexico to Toronto. I said, this is such a great piece, man. I really like this. And Louis, a mustached bartender who I had no idea would return the kindness, he did. And then we became fast friends. And we've attempted to collaborate on many things, taken some L's, and we just keep trudging forward. Yeah. That's a podcast. Thank you to everybody for listening.
Truly. Thank you.
Like it before you get out. I'm like a YouTuber streamer now, but God, you have to
Always
say it. You're supposed to say it. That's not true. Thank you so much for listening. This will all be time stamped afterwards. If you came late, if you missed the film segment, that will be its own video later. And yeah, thanks for listening. It's always crazy. We get hundreds of people to just listen to us chop it up on an early Saturday afternoon. Love y'all. Louis, love ya. Listeners, thank you so much. And whether you got into this in the morning or at night or right now, have a blessed day and goodbye.